On our broadcast tonight, the Korean government's long-term fiscal outlook is out and it's not looking good. At current pace, the nation's debt to GDP will top 60% and the state pension will dry up by year 2060. Korean shares join a slump in global markets, but the euro shines after the European Central Bank wrong-foots traders. We'll have the details. And senior diplomats from Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo reaffirm intention to work closely on North Korea, particularly over Pyongyang's nuclear program and ballistic missile development. NewsCenter begins right now. Good evening to you in Korea and hello to those around the world. This is NewsCenter. President Park Geun-hye is set to wrap up her 7-day tour of Europe. While in the Czech Republic, the Korean leader made various efforts to tap into the Central European region and boost ties with the Visegrad group, the Prague, Bratislava, Budapest, and Warsaw. Our Hwang Sung-hee is traveling with the president and she joins us from Prague. Now, Sung-hee, where in Prague is it that you're coming from?
Kanyang, on her last day here in Prague, President Park visited the landmark Charles Bridge, which is where I'm standing right now. She was accompanied by the Czech Prime Minister, who explained the history of the bridge that dates back to 1402. Yesterday, President Park met with the Prime Ministers of the Visegrad Group, and the summit is deemed one of the most important schedules on President Park's itinerary here in the Czech capital. In their first summit, President Park and leaders from the Visegrad Group vowed stronger multilateral economic cooperation.
오늘 한 비세그라드 협력이라는 새로운 차원의 협력을 만들므로써 더욱 다층적이고 다면적인 파트너십을 발전시켜 나아갈 수 있는 터전을 마련하였습니다.
The Visegrad Group is comprised of the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland, which are 4 of the fastest-growing European Union nations. One of the key agreements in their joint statement is opening up Central Europe's booming infrastructure market to Korean businesses. The Visegrad Group has secured roughly 40% of the EU fund and will invest $43 billion on large infrastructure projects like subway constructions in the coming years.
우리 정상들은 에너지 및 인프라 분야에서의 미래 지향적 파트너십을 강화하기 위해 에너지 분야 협력 모색을 위한 대화 추진과 인프라 고위급 회의 설치에 합의를 하였습니다.
The Visegrad Group reaffirmed their support for the peaceful reunification of the two Koreas, strongly condemning North Korea's nuclear weapons program. The South Korean leader also called on the European nations to share their experience of successfully transitioning from a socialist economy to a market economy for securing peace on the Korean peninsula. President Park will soon depart for Seoul, wrapping up her 7-day tour. Now, the latest trip, which took her to France and the Czech Republic, was the last presidential trip of this year. Kanyang?
Great reporting, Sung-hee. Looking forward to see you back here. That was our presidential office correspondent, Hwang Sung-hee, live from Prague. Now, following parliamentary approval of the nation's 2016 budget bill earlier this week, Korea's finance ministry has released a long-term fiscal outlook for Asia's 4th largest economy. Now, among the most urgent issues that need to be addressed is the nation's ever-growing debt-to-GDP ratio. Will that and other factors threatening Korea's fiscal health in the coming decades? Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Korea's sovereign debt will exceed 60% of GDP in 2060 if the government fails to keep spending under control. The outlook coming from the finance ministry cites various structural issues that threaten the economy's long-term fiscal health.
Korea's population is aging at an unprecedented rate in the face of a low birth rate. This will raise welfare expenditures while the potential growth rate remains sluggish.
The figure is based on the scenario that government spending will keep pace with the country's nominal growth rate. The ministry adds, though, that Korea will be able to hold the level below 40% if it goes through a debt restructuring process. But with debt figures expected to surpass 40% next year for the first time ever, the government pledges to keep a close eye on possible risks to maintain fiscal soundness and come up with preemptive measures. While adding the core solution to the country's worsening fiscal health is maintaining a stable growth rate, the government says the 60% rate of debt to GDP is still far below the OECD average of 115% forecast for 2016. 황지혜, 아리랑 뉴스.
Onions, cabbage, beef, and pork. These are the main ingredients when making Korea's staple dishes such as kimchi and bulgogi. But the spiking prices of these produce are setting off alarm bells on concerns that this may lead to inflation of all consumer goods in general. Arirang News' Oh Soo-young reports.
Farm-produced goods have become increasingly costly for households in the last 7 months compared to the overall consumer price inflation this year, which remained within the 0% range up to November. According to Statistics Korea, prices for meat, fish and vegetables have skyrocketed since May, when the inflation rate increased 2.7% on month. The price for a bag of onions has climbed significantly since August. In fact, the inflation rate spiked 98.9% in November compared to the year before. Cabbages also recorded an on-year increase of over 90% in June. And it's not limited to vegetables, as meat is becoming more of a luxury. The cost of Korean beef increased almost 12% on month in November, carrying the most expensive price tag in 5 years. Pork prices have also peaked to a 4-year high. As the cost of staple food items in Korea continues to rise, households may begin tightening the purse strings due to concerns that all consumer goods will become more expensive. However, experts say that the rising price of farm produce has a limited impact in the long run.
The consumer price index hasn't increased significantly, but consumers are more sensitive to daily necessities such as farm produce. Therefore, they may feel that prices are increasing on the whole. Also, farm produce prices are volatile in nature, so a hike in prices is likely to be temporary.
Production in general was low this year, exacerbated by the heavy drought. But experts maintain that Korean households shouldn't be too concerned about an increase in their grocery bills. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Asian and European stock markets took a hit today as investors disappointed by the ECB's stimulus plan hunkered down ahead of U.S. jobs data that will influence a Fed rate hike decision later this month. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The Korean stock market retreated Friday largely due to stimulus measures unveiled by the European Central Bank the previous day. Korea's benchmark KOSPI fell for the third straight day Friday, dropping 1% from the previous day to close at the 1,970 level. During the 3 days leading to Friday, around $774.8 million worth of local stocks were sold by foreign investors. Local analysts say the ECB measures disappointed investors who had expected it to offset a likely increase in U.S. interest rates.
Investors hoped the ECB would increase the volume of its asset purchase program, but it didn't, while the U.S. Federal Reserve gave signs it will raise its interest rate later this month. And if the latter happens, the value of the U.S. dollar is expected to strengthen, pressuring capital outflows from emerging markets.
But the analysts also said the financial shock to the local market will ease after the upcoming meeting by the U.S. Federal Reserve, expected to raise rate for the first time in 9 years. He says the fluctuation of the U.S. dollar will recede, boosting investor confidence and alleviating foreigners' selling of local stocks. To induce inflation, the ECB cut its deposit interest rate further into negative territory by 0.1 percentage point to minus 0.3% Thursday, while its monthly €60 billion stimulus program was extended to March 2017. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's banking industry is in for the largest shakeup in over 2 decades as 2 online-only banks are set to launch next year. The country also saw its first autonomous kiosk this week. Traditional banks are also trying very hard to stay in the game by expanding their online platforms and diversifying their products. For an in-depth look into the changing banking landscape, Arirang News Kim Min-ji joins me live in the studio. Now, Min-ji, first thing first, what exactly is an online-only bank? Because when we think about internet banking, it's something we've had for years and what we've been using.
That's right, Kanyang. An internet bank is a bank that offers services via telephone banking or by online without going to the traditional brick-and-mortar stores and without face-to-face transactions. Now, Korea tried to launch it back in the 2000s, but it failed due to regulations. And now that the government is getting rid of excessive red tape to foster the rapidly growing fintech sector and allowing non-face-to-face interaction when it comes to doing banking activities, the nation's banking landscape is expected to change big time. Over 100 banking services are now available with just a few touches on the screen at this digital kiosk. All you need to do is insert your identification card and register your biometric details using vein recognition, saving you from going to the bank or talking to anyone face to face. Now everything's possible with just the palm of your hand.
People will no longer have to go to banks, and there's the added benefit for consumers as they can even carry out banking activities after working hours and even on weekends.
It's just one example of the changing bank landscape in Korea. The consortiums for K-Bank and Kakao Bank have won preliminary approval to launch the nation's first internet-only banks, offering financial services free of local branches or tellers. Such banks are supposed to offer higher interest rates as operators save costs of running offline offices and middle interest loans for small borrowers. Experts say it's a move that could spark a financial big bang.
Some people will still find it more convenient to go to the bank in person. So these new internet-only banks will have to continue coming up with creative ideas to make up for it.
However, it's not risk-free. Experts predict it will take at least 3 years before they turn to the red, as they may struggle to lure a wide range of customers, not to mention the dangers of cybercrimes.
As there's no face-to-face contact, financial authorities and banks will have to make security an utmost priority. Many are seeking to adopt bio-authentication, but it raises concerns as once there's a leak, a person can't change their bio details.
Experts add that they need to comply by global standards when it comes to security, as consumers' trust needs to be secured first in order to promote the expansion of this novel banking system in the nation.
I mean, G, in this day and age, every time we need to make a transaction, instead of running down to a local bank, we would just take out our smartphones and, use mobile banking or turn our laptops on. And this, I suppose, online-only banks must be terrible news to the already hit traditional banks.
Yes, there are about 7,000 bank offices in the nation, and almost 400 closed just last year. Now, there's speculation that their profits could decline, but experts say they aren't just going to sit there and watch. So they too will come up with diversified products and promote their own online services. So while the landscape will change, experts say it will spur healthy competition and it will likely enhance Korea's financial soundness down the road.
Minji, we've seen these online-only banks up and running in the U.S. and other parts of the world. Is Korea a latecomer to this?
Well, in the U.S. and Europe, they started back in the 1990s, and Japan followed in the 2000s. Now, despite Korea being one of the most wired countries, we're about 20 years behind the U.S. But experts say it's going to be hard coming for Korea right now because customers aren't just going to change banks because of slightly higher rates or slightly better rates. So they advise that Korea's financial authorities benchmark successful overseas cases.
Right, because we're talking about a big bulk of money in our savings, so we're going to have trust in this online banking system for us to, I guess, turn to this online-only banks.
That's right.
All right, Minji, thank you so much for that. Great reporting once again.
You're welcome.
The top nuclear negotiators of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan see eye to eye on the need to keep sending a stern message to North Korea to deter North Korea's provocations. Well, this follows that regime's latest test of submarine-launched ballistic missile. Our defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has the details of a trilateral meeting that took place in Washington, D.C.
South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, Hwang Jung-kook, held trilateral talks with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts in Washington on Thursday. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Policy Sung Kim and Director General at Japan's Foreign Ministry, Kimihiro Ishikane, led each country's delegations. The meeting comes after Pyongyang conducted another submarine-launched ballistic missile test last week, as well as a new tunnel being built at Punggye-ri nuclear test site, indicating a possible fourth nuclear test. Hwang urged the North to stop all its nuclear activities and urged the communist regime to return to the negotiating table for unconditional exploratory talks to restart the long-stalled six-party talks.
North Korea should halt its nuclear and missile tests, freeze its nuclear activities, and reinstate IAEA inspectors at Yongbyon, which will be the start of denuclearizing Pyongyang and abiding by the September 19th joint statements.
Hwang also urged the international community to send a strong message to deter Pyongyang's strategic provocations, including SLBM and satellite launches. The three countries held its last chief nuclear envoy talks in Seoul in May, and the first since Japan replaced its top nuclear envoy in October. The six-party talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea have been stalled since 2008, as Pyongyang demands unconditional resumption of negotiations, while Washington urges the communist regime to take concrete steps in denuclearization. The six-party talks members include U.S., Japan, China, Russia, and the two Koreas. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
It's dubbed the Itaewon homicide. 18 years later, the case remains unresolved. There are two primary suspects, one of whom an American citizen. Now, a mock-up of the crime scene was staged at the Seoul Prosecutors Office today. Hopefully a move closer to resolving this long overdue murder case. Our Lee Soo-eun reports.
In April of 1997, a Korean college student named Jo Jung-pil was stabbed to death in the bathroom of a Burger King outlet in the Itaewon district of Seoul, a case that has been dubbed Itaewon Murder. Two men have admitted to have been at the crime scene, namely Edward Lee, who had initially been found guilty of the crime, then acquitted in 1998, and Arthur Patterson, who fled to the U.S. in 1999 and got extradited back to Korea in September as the new accused suspect. Trials have been ongoing since October, and on Friday, a crime scene reenactment took place on a set constructed inside the Seoul Prosecutors Office. The original crime scene, the fast food restaurant, had closed down. In the presence of judges, prosecutors, and attorneys, forensic experts compared records of bloodstains from 1997 with two separate reenactments made by Patterson and Lee. The investigation looked closely at their claimed movement paths. Patterson argues that he went into the washroom after Lee did and witnessed Lee kill Jo, while Lee says he was washing his hands and witnessed Patterson kill Jo through the mirror. Patterson's attorney told Arirang TV that Lee's testimony was false and that the prosecution also acknowledged it because if Lee had washed his hands standing in front of the sink, that would have left no room in such a small bathroom for the victim to come out of the toilet stall.
The bloodstains show no evidence of water flowing or pooling in the sink. He made up a meticulous scenario.
The lawyer, however, left no comments about Patterson's reenactment and whether it had points of contention with the 1997 records. Following the reenactments, the Itaewon murder case could have taken a new direction, with only 2 months left until the final verdict is reached in February. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
Labor groups that staged violent protests last month against the current administration's policies will take to the streets of Seoul again tomorrow. On the back of Labor Federation's promises, experts claim Korea is in a period of transition to peaceful rallies. Here's Arirang News' Connie Kim.
Another mass protest against President Park Geun-hye's labor reforms and education policies will take place in central Seoul on Saturday, after a court overturned the previous police ban. The Seoul Administrative Court said it was hard to conclude violence will definitely break out, especially as the organizers have repeatedly promised to ensure it runs peacefully. Police had attempted to ban the protest after a mass demonstration held last month turned violent. Some protesters from a militant labor federation brandished metal pipes and smashed up police buses, while police responded with water cannons and pepper spray to repel the crowds. Korea's largest demonstration in nearly a decade left many protesters and police injured, with one demonstrator still in critical condition after being knocked to the ground by a water cannon. Police have pledged to take stern measures if Saturday's rally turns violent. Experts say, however, Korea's protest scene may change in the future.
Using violence in protest was accepted when the country was fighting for democracy. Korea is currently in a transition period to peaceful demonstrations. From a police point of view, one of the problems at this point is the mindset of protesters, thinking they should clash with police physically to achieve what they want.
In what may be the first steps to peaceful demonstrations in the country, labor federations insist their members are not looking to vent their frustrations physically.
In order to convey citizens' anger towards the current administration, we will carry out the rally peacefully and within the boundaries of the Constitution.
Several thousand protesters are expected to attend Saturday's rally, and it remains to be seen whether there will be calm or chaos. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Up-and-coming young designers in this country look forward to this time of the year because of this very unique festival. It's where they get to showcase their work and even attract investors. Our very own Lee Ji-won brings us this report from the venue.
Graphics and patterns are displayed onto a bag, and the customer picks his or her favorite ones. Then, the chosen design is printed on the bag, suiting the customer's taste and making the bag a one-of-a-kind. This is the business idea Sarah came up with from fusing media, facade, and design.
As a media artist, I thought it would be nice to be able to actually grab media. So I thought of using projection mapping to paint media work on a fashion item.
Sarah has not started her business yet, but by showcasing her idea at the Seoul Design Festival, she got a good perspective on how customers reacted to her vision and how to lure investment. Sarah is one among 45 young designers selected to participate in the festival to hopefully get their works recognized.
Young and talented artists as well as startups do not have much chance to exhibit their works, so the festival seeks to introduce and promote them to various investors and businesses. Hopefully they can attract sponsorships to support their passion for design.
The Seoul Design Festival was first held in 2002, and for the 14th year, it has paved the way for many artists to fulfill their dreams. And Hee-won is one of them.
I joined the festival as a design student in 2007 with a table that has different graphic layers. The work attracted a lot of foreign contacts and businesses. Then I was given the opportunity to exhibit at the Milan Design Week and Berlin's DMY International Design Festival.
The Seoul Design Festival is not only a learning experience for up-and-coming artists, but also for art students and spectators as well.
My professor recommended the festival, so I came here all the way from Daegu. And I'm glad to have come as there were various design products to enjoy and learn about.
The festival also provides a variety of activities for the spectators to enjoy, such as a photo booth and giant coloring books. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Dubbed the Godfather of animation here in Korea, he's behind some iconic animated characters such as The Simpsons, Pink Panther, and Transformers. His work also extends to live action, including the famous Star Wars. In person with us this week is Nelson Shin. Nelson, it's great to have you in our show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Okay.
It's quite difficult for me to really know where to begin with you because you've been responsible for so many of our beloved cartoon characters. But I'm going to start off with my favorite, Simpsons.
Yeah, I think we did about 1989. I was the beginning with this creation. Mm-hmm. Actually, we're taking only the main production only. So it's not really belong to 100% to us, but actually all the motions, produce the actions and everything, we put together in Korea. So depends on all the actions, that's on ACOMs.
So ACOM is your company?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
How big of a company is it? How many people work for you?
We have about almost like 1,700 people working all the productions.
1,700 people?
Yeah, 100 people, yeah. There's so many people.
Wow.
We used like 7 different buildings to surround.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but since the 1990, we sort of like converted to digital.
So basically, do you use software now to better create
Yeah,
the animated
now
films?
we're still doing, but we're using all the software, hardware, whatever relate to the computer. That's what we do.
So over the years, and then you finally arrived to Empress Chung. Empress Chung is your baby. You started off from scratch. You wrote your own script.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning that it opened simultaneously or released simultaneously in South and North Korea. How did that come about?
I was planning, Shimcheong. We Korean says Shimcheongjeon. Yeah, but this I named the Empress Chung. I wrote based on Korean folk tales, So then I was started thinking, wow, why I can work with the North Korean artist, because I bumped to them several festivals, markets out of country. So I talked to them, how about I'm planning to produce this film. Can you work together with me, So we agreed, so we just shake a hand and start the business together.
Where?
The Pyongyang, the main production. We did a pre-production South Korea and main production at the Pyongyang and Pyongyang studio, and post-production bring back to the South Korea. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is quite a story behind.
Right. So what was your experience like working in Pyongyang with North Koreans?
At the beginning, wasn't so good, Well, they don't believe at the beginning. But anyway, I taught them how to do animation.
Right.
I taught them, this is animation, not only just the movement of the action. This is you have to learn natural science to make it beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, they take about almost 3 years. So, this film is fantastic. The finally, Kim Jong-il okayed, release in theater. Same times, North and South. This is first time we engaged and produced and released together. Success.
And this was back in 2005, I believe, the release.
Yes.
Wow. This is my final question. Do you have a goal in life?
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I'm anytime, maybe tomorrow, I can produce another movie. I don't want to sit down and relax. I always challenging for the future with the young people, because this is the animation. Because animation is fantastic, the art.
Well, we look forward to seeing another new Nelson Shin animated film in the near future.
I hope so. I really try.
Well, thank you so much for coming to our studio and sharing your delightful stories today.
Thank you so much. I'm meeting you today here. Yeah, thank you.
Germany's parliament has voted to provide military support in the fight against ISIS. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me. Now, Bruce, what does this vote authorize the German government to do?
Hello, Kanyang. Germany's largely playing the supporting role rather, to other countries that have already decided to put troops on the ground or drop bombs in Syria. So far, Berlin said it's going to send 6 reconnaissance jets, a frigate to help protect France's aircraft carrier in the region, and refueling aircraft to the Middle East.
So right now we have France, Great Britain, U.S. and Russia already carrying out airstrikes against the Islamic State. What's Germany's stance joining in on these strikes?
This recent vote in Parliament does not allow Germany to engage in airstrikes. And Berlin said since early on that it wouldn't have any involvement in a direct attack like a bombing raid. But even the support Germany has now authorized drew a lot of protests from Germany's left and Green parties leading up to the vote. Left Party leader Sarah Wagenknecht said it's certain the last 3 weeks of bombing in Syria killed more civilians than the barbaric attacks in Paris. Protesters outside Parliament echoed that sentiment.
War is never a means to solve problems. It affects so many innocent people. That's why I am here.
Despite the opposition, a recent public opinion poll shows 58% of Germans back their country's involvement in the campaign against IS. Police in Cairo say someone hurled a Molotov cocktail at a nightclub, killing 16 people and wounding 2 others. The attack happened early Friday at the club in Cairo's Aguza district. An Egyptian security official said the attacker was a man who'd been fired from a restaurant at the nightclub, but an eyewitness told a different story, saying the attack was the result of an argument which quickly escalated when bouncers blocked several people from entering the club. Smoke billowed from the front of the building as people stood by and watched, helpless to save those inside.
I ran outside and saw the nightclub on fire. The flames were really strong. I then saw ambulances pull out around 16 bodies, 6 of which were women. It's difficult to tell if they'll survive or not.
Victims of the blast were burned to death or died from smoke inhalation. Investigators are trying to determine whether the couple that shot and killed 14 people in San Bernardino, California, had ties to Islamic militants. With the attackers dead, they'll have to rely on evidence. Syed Farouk and his wife, Tashfeen Malik, were killed in a shootout with police Wednesday after they opened fire at the Inland Regional Center where Farouk worked. According to family and friends, Farouk was, for at least a time, a devout Muslim, and many are now concerned of the implications his attack could have on the Muslim community. U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch was quick to speak out against hate crimes following the shooting.
Since 9/11, we've had over 1,000 investigations into acts of anti-Muslim hatred, including rhetoric and bigoted actions, with over 45 prosecutions arising out of that.
Lynch said she thinks that number is going to grow.
Numbers. Apparently, Farouk traveled to the Middle East several times, most recently in 2014.
Investigators are looking into his travel overseas as they try and figure out the motive behind this. Really, it's unclear right now. There's so much evidence to sift through, and with both attackers dead, as I mentioned, it's difficult to find out.
Right, and the FBI has taken over now from local authorities in investigating this case, and President Obama has said that this could be terrorism-related, or it could just be workplace-related. So we'll have to wait and see how this investigation unfolds.
Exactly.
All right, Bruce, thank you so much for today. It was another cold day here in the nation's capital. Let's get a weather update with Jihyun at the Weather Center. Jihyun.
Hello, Ganyang. You're right. It was a freezing Friday today. It was sunny, yes, but it didn't do much as the strong winds brought down the sensory temperatures to below 0 in the central regions, including here in the capital all day long. So I hope you stayed warm today. We should have a mild and bright day tomorrow with a high of 7, but the low on Sunday will go down to the freezing side at -4. But as we can see, no snow is in the forecast for the weekend. And on to tomorrow's daily lows here in the capital will kick off at 0, 1 for Daegu. Busan and Jeju will start out at 3 and 7. Afternoon highs will be slightly higher than today as the daily high here in the capital will get up to 7. 10 for Daegu. Busan and Jeju will see a high of 12 and 11. Next week, though, looks promising under plenty of sunshine. The mercury will gradually go up with highs rising to the upper single digits as the week goes on. And before I go, there was an incident yesterday evening between the West Pyeongtaek interchange and Songhak interchange on the Seoyan Expressway. 3 of the bridge's cables were damaged by fire, and due to safety inspection, these sections will be shut down until December 24. So drivers, you'll need to bear this in mind. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That is our broadcast on this Friday night, and this is it for the first week of December. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm Moon Gan-young. Hope you have a wonderful yet relaxing weekend, and we hope to see you right back here same time Monday on NewsCenter.